Dawn. I'm very excited to have Dawn on the call tonight. Beg your pardon. I met Dawn for the first time last year at our PSA midterm convention that was held in Johannesburg. And Dawn was talking about the same topic that you'll be talking about tonight, which is really working out our personal, professional speaker brand, which is very interesting. Dawn has a history as a business and executive coach. Well, she is a business and executive coach, a professional speaker, and author. She's written a book called The Art of the Suit, and she draws on her 20 years experience industry and running her own ad agency. And the information, the insights, the skills that she's brought to big brands that we would all know and engage with, that is what she wants to bring to us as individuals as we make some progress in our speaking careers. So I know Dawn has got some really interesting stuff. I loved her session last year, and I'm looking forward to hearing some more. It doesn't matter if you think that you've sorted your brand out. We're always growing and maturing our content and our ideas. And so sometimes we need to revisit our brand. And for some of us who are starting out, or some of us who have reimagined or reinvented themselves like I have recently, then the whole branding conversation is a very powerful one to really tap into. So Dawn is, absolutely the right person to have on this conversation. We're going to hand over to her. Dawn will speak for a while, share some great insights with us, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. If you have any questions, you feel free to pop them into the chat box. Dawn won't stop necessarily and answer them during the time because she wants to go through her presentation. But if they're there, then between us, we'll be able to pick them up and address them afterwards. So Dawn, I'm going to hand over to you. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much. Have you got me loud and clear? Fantastic. Thank you very much. Well, welcome everyone. I think as a precursor, and I'd really like to keep this as a knowledge sharing experience rather than me just presenting to you this evening, I have to preempt by saying that I'm also a newbie to the speaking fraternity. I do not regard myself as a particularly powerful presenter or speaker. I'm still, as Charlotte said, in the process of really inventing myself and understanding my space, which is fantastic because I have the advantage of having had 35 years in the ad industry. I'm surprised I can say that without twitching furiously, but I really do have the benefit of that experience. I think I've worked on every product category from spark plugs to tampons. I've been privileged to work on global brands, on national brands. I've helped build and launch brands. And in my speaker experience and as a business and executive coach, it's my intention to share that knowledge. And my reward is to help people unpack and truly unpack their potential. In my presentation this evening, I have a subject, Woody. And just in case you think Woody is a fictitious character, I thought I would just show you that he actually lives, here's a little wave from Woody. He lives in my study. Woody is my muse. And I did some research on it because I was a bit worried that you can only have female muses. But in today's day and age, they say a muse can be male or female. So Woody's listening to us. He is a lot of the subject matter and the stimulation of my thinking. I really don't want you to look at me as the talking head. I'm going to take you through a presentation for about the next half an hour because I'd really like to engage and answer some of your questions. After all, it's very difficult to build a brand in an hour. And as Charlotte said, this is more of an opportunity of what we would refer to in the marketing industry as a brand review. And my hope this evening, after sharing this knowledge with all of you, is that maybe it'll kickstart a process of you just rewinding, reevaluating your brand, and considering of how you can build a truly spectacular speaker brand. Just going through the introductions, I can already see that there is some superb material here and really magnificent brands. So with a little bit of help from Charlotte and Ian, in case I get this wrong, I'm now going to share my presentation, we hope. If you give me a moment while I get, we did do a dry run a bit earlier on. If you give me a sec. Sorry. You're probably looking at my shopping list right now.
We're not seeing anything just yet.
Okay, hang on a sec. Sorry.
No, don't worry.
I did get
You
it
should
right
see some of
earlier.
the things we've experimented with on this online meeting, so don't worry.
Sorry, let me just get this.
Okay, are you finding the share button?
Sorry, guys. Oh, can you see anything yet there, Charlotte?
No.
Nothing yet?
Nothing yet. Have you got the share button at the bottom of the screen?
Yeah. Sorry, just for some reason it seems to have disappeared.
So you just have to hover over the bottom, the share button comes up, and then you can select what you want to share. There we go. Nice.
Okay.
All right, over to you.
Fantastic. Okay. Do you have picture? Good.
Yes, all good.
So here we go. Thank you very much. So really, what I'd like to share with you tonight is one particular insight is that the genius is in the understanding. And the understanding here is about your personal brand. It's understanding truly what you're all about. And I'd like to guide you on how to unpack that, really at a high level perspective, but to give you some guidelines. If we were doing a typical brand review exercise, what we would be looking at would be things like analysis, strategy, promotion. But as I introduced earlier on, what I'm going to do is use the example of Woody to give you a couple of visual mnemonics just to help you remember some of the processes that you can implement yourself. It's quite interesting when you look at the concept of a personal brand. If you look at the 90s, towards the late 90s, the concept of a personal brand was confined to these famous personalities. If you think of Richard Branson, if you think of Oprah Winfrey, even McDonald's, there were names and individuals associated with such a strong degree of presence that they were actually brand builders in their own naming rights. Today, though, the competition is just so enormous and so great. It's not just within the framework of, for example, our professional speaker community, but it's on a global platform. We're sitting here tonight with somebody sitting in Switzerland. That's just a proof point for me of just how competitive things are. So it's really essential that you find out what your drivers and what your assets are. And I'd like to hope that this evening I'm going to help you unpack some of those ideas and encourage you to then repackage them into your personal brand. When I talk to individuals about building their personal brand, this is kind of the physical pose that they tend to go into. We are excellent at criticizing ourselves, and we feel very insecure the moment that you are compared to others. I remember coming into the speaker fraternity with this enormous amount of enthusiasm, and then in fact, the very convention that Charlotte mentioned, I remembered sitting there for these 2 days, looking at one genius speaker after another, and wondering if I was a pretender to the throne. I just thought, my heavens, look at this talent. And this pose that you see Woody in was exactly as I felt. But as I say, fortunately, my behavior as a brand builder gave me enough zest to kind of pull myself together. And in all honesty, it's probably taken about 3 years for me to start finding my space in the speaker fraternity. So what should you do? What you really need to do is understand who you are. And I'm not talking about from a psychological or overly emotional perspective, but what I want you to do is look at yourself from a brand perspective. If you were a brand and you were sitting on the shelf in a supermarket, the kind of propositions would be, what do you offer? It would be along the lines of, what can you do for me? Because at the end of the day, it's all about what you have to sell. So, and furthermore, what is unique about you? Hang on a sec, I've got a bit of a freeze here. Woody's misbehaving. He doesn't want me to get past the slide. Sorry, give me 1 second. There you go. We are unstuck. So as I say, what is it that you offer? What can you do for me? What is unique? When I listened to the introductions that you guys went through, you've got some phenomenal points of difference. What happens is, I found for myself that I listened to other professional speakers and I started doubting what my offering was. So if you just consider what it is that you are truly giving to your audience, I think that is the first step of success. And as Shada has indicated, as my experience has been, to keep a constant state of reinvention for your brand. I'm sure that even your favorite washing powder or your favorite toothpaste, you will have noticed that with regularity, they change something. It may just be the packaging, it may be a flavor, it may be new technology. But you need to keep yourself fresh at all times. I've got some good news for you. The sad news is that we all carry baggage, right? The good news is that in that very baggage are all of these assets. Some of them are obvious to you, some of them you've considered. They're the things that you find in your CV typically. So the hard assets that you need to consider as a brand would be, for example, your education, your work experience, your life experience, your successes, your status in the work community or as a professional. But what is becoming more and more important are the soft skills. So have you, for example, considered that your passion for Spanish dancing is actually an asset that you can use as a brand builder? Your sense of humor, the fact that you are a great runner, the fact that you have the discipline to be a marathon runner, the fact that you're an artist, a hobbyist. All of those aspects of you can be used in your brand building exercise, and you need to actually jot these down and make a note of them. When you're digging around in your baggage, inevitably, there's some things about you that you don't particularly like. Well, Woody and I have some simple advice. What you need to do is try and flip those things. You can flip what you may perceive as negatives, or I prefer to call them detractors, from the essence of the brand. If you look at brands out in the marketplace, the reality is that some have more assets than others, and yet those with less assets can have a greater consumer following. So if I take myself, I'm quite pedantic, and people have often described me as pedantic. I flip that into a sell. And I sell myself as being an excellent team member, that I'm focused, I'm dedicated, I'm like a Rottweiler. If you set me out on a task, that's me. I may be pedantic, I may be pragmatic, but I can flip it into a sell. If you can't flip aspects of who you are, what your assets are, into a positive, then it's simple enough. Bury them. But just remember to bury those aspects of you with love. What I encourage people to do is to visualize burying them in a transparent box with a wonderful label. And once you've done that, give it a big kiss, stick it back in your baggage, because it's likely to pop up. And just that moment when it's going to pop up and try and trip you up, because you can identify it, because you know exactly what aspect of your assets in your profile it is, you can get it out of the way. So here we have all of these assets that you've unpacked, your hard skills, your soft skills, you have flipped things or you've buried them out of the way. Is that enough? No, it's not. When we're talking about building a brand, a personal brand, what you really need to do is to listen to those around you. We all have an enormous amount of blind spots. And the best way to find out your sales aspects is to ask friends, family, colleagues, the guy at the corner shop. Ask them to tell brief stories about you of when you were at your best. The way that people see us is often very different to the way we see ourselves. So we talk about best self-reflection. And the way you arrive at best self-reflection is to ask people to tell very brief stories, just 30 seconds tales about you. Well, let me give you an example. So when I think of Dawn, I think of the time when this happened. And if I had to sell her to you, I would sell this aspect of her personality. Some of those self-reflections, you're going to go, yeah, right. I know that I'm like the stalwart. I know that I'm very reliable. I'm sick and tired of being everybody's go-to person. I wish I could rely on somebody else for a change. But, you know, there are those kind of stories where you go, yeah, yeah, yeah. But then you get the gems. You get the, really? Is that how you see me? I have had lots of those. And I keep on asking people to share the best self-reflection stories with me, even new people that I meet who get to know me, because they help me refine and reinvent my brand as I go along. I've just frozen again, so I'm kind of getting into this game. There you go, best self-reflection. Now, before we start packaging this all together, I need to encourage you to be truly honest about your ambitions. You know, some of us are professional speakers just because we have something burning inside of us. Your heart kind of bursts with that message and you really want to share it. But then there's also the reality that maybe it's just a financial reality. Maybe it is that you are out of work or you can no longer do the profession that you had. For me, advertising, if I'd continued past the 35 years of experience, I honestly believe it would have killed me. I had to get out of the game. It belongs to young, dynamic, highly energetic individuals who need very little sleep. That's not me. So I had to be honest about I still required a career. I have a voice. I have ideas. I love brands. I have a passion about helping other people realize success, in particular entrepreneurs. And that gave me a lot of indicators. So what you need to do when you're rewinding in your brand review is truly consider what it is that you need. If it's financial stability and it's a monthly demand of finance, or if you want to be extremely wealthy, or if you want fame, it doesn't matter what it is your brand choice. Be honest with yourself and make sure that going forward, you have a realistic check. Once you've got all of these assets unpacked, you're going to find that there is the opportunity to blend different dimensions of your personality into, let's call it, brand variance. So if you take a brand like Dove as an example, one of my favorites, and you go up to the supermarket shelf, let's say take Dove shampoo, you're going to find for oily hair, dry hair, for split ends, you find a whole array, but it's still Dove. At the essence of your brand is who you are, what your drivers are, and what your true personality and character is all about. But it's not to say you have to be a vanilla blend only. What's really exciting is that once you've done this branding exercise, that you can refine yourself into different variants that you can present to different sectors. So you can keep yourself interesting and appealing to a much broader market when, for example, it comes to the speaking audience or speaker fraternity. So you've now got a clearer idea, I hope, of what your ambitions are. You've got some idea of what you're after. You're now ready to step out onto that ladder of success. Have you ever had that experience when you are walking along and you miss a step? Actually, from my study, if I was brave enough to mess around with my camera, I would show you. I have a little step down into my sitting room. I've lived in this house for 28 years, and every now and then I still miss the step. And you know how foolish you feel and look when you miss that step? That's what happens when you're doing your brand blend. You're going to miss a couple of steps along the way, but I don't want you to be discouraged. What you need to do is just remember that there may be some things you need to learn, some things you need to do to refine that asset mix that you've got. You maybe need to go back to your baggage, dig around a little bit harder, or maybe learn something new. But what you are going to experience, and if any of you do go to gym, you're going to realize just how important that stretch is. If you feel the stretch, then the good news is that you're busy brand building. That sense of stretch is what it's all about. If it's same, you're not doing yourself justice. If you really want to be a super powerful speaker brand or a super powerful brand per se, which all of you can be, you do need to experience that sense of stretch. But as with everything else, just take care. Don't overstretch yourself. Be kind. Take little gentle steps. The PSA is a wonderful place to get that assistance and guidance and help from, because I personally can vouch for the amount of assistance and guidance that I've received to ensure that my stretch doesn't discourage me from persisting and keeping on. And I really do. The next very important thing that you need to do is write down your personal brand strategy. So write down your understanding of who you are, what you're going after, what your brand needs are, what your assets are. There are two reasons for actually writing this down. First of all, when you are feeling discouraged and you've lost belief in your own brand, that is the document that you need to revisit. You need to revisit what you wrote to yourself, that love letter of how fabulous this brand was and why sales should be shooting through the roof. And to have that in writing is a good tool to use for yourself. I'm also a firm believer that when you write things down, which I constantly do, I have my ongoing brand strategy, which evolves all the time, is there's a dynamic cosmic experience that happens. It's almost like writing down your wish list and the realization of those aspirations. If you were a brand manager and you wanted your boss to invest in your dream or shareholders to invest in your product, there's no way they would do it without your written brand strategy as a business plan to convince them. So how about doing it for yourself? It's not enough to just have the document though. What you need to do is develop a 6-pack of your brand strategy. You have to practice, practice, practice. You have to find as many people as you can to listen to your brand pitch. And if nobody will listen to you, if you've got a dog or a cat, use them. I used to always try it out on my dog. I now speak to Woody about it. But trust me, you need to pitch that brand, that elevator pitch, that 30-seconder as often as you can. And another very useful tool is to get some help. If you've got a coach, or you can get a coach or a mentor, then fantastic. If not, find somebody who's truly going to respect what your brand ambitions are. They need to be gentle, they need to be kind. You want somebody who's going to keep you true to your brand promise and encourage you to reinvent yourself and get out there and do the speaker gigs. So you always need that smiling face in the audience, I call them shugga shugga rah rah girls or guys. But really find someone to keep you true and keep you on track. What is even more important is to take time out to relax. When you're in your relaxed state, as neurosciences have proven, your brain, and especially your creative side, just lights up like a Christmas tree. You have to take time out, at least every quarter. In this chaotic pressure of life that we have, we don't give ourselves enough time to sit and review your brand and see where you are. Look at your brand strategy document again. Consider how creative you're being, what the appeal of your proposition is to the marketplace. Take the time out. If you've got the discipline and you're prepared to engage, I find that meditation is my very best. Whether it's full on meditation or even something like a repetitive sport like jogging or cycling, something to just ease your brain into a creative state. Absolutely essential. So if you've done all of this work, you're now ready to practice that pitch. I provide my clients with a couple of headlines to help you with this. Maybe make a note of these. Your story should be very clear and you should be able to do it in a minute. And the story is about who I am. I'm really good at. What makes me different is, oh, and I've frozen. Hang on a sec. I'm going to get very good at this unfreezing business. Okay, let's hope this works. Here you go. What makes me different is, this is what I can do for you. This is how I do it. And all you need to do to get it is. These are really useful headlines to get your ideas and your thinking together. This is the conversation that you have when you're at a networking cocktail party and people say, well, who are you? What are you about? What is your pitch? If you can just put your story together under these headlines and take these headlines into your quarterly review, it'll do you the world of good. And as I said earlier on, it's not just a vanilla flavor. Make sure that you're being authentic and true to yourself. If your brand is about what you truly are, your narrative, your pitch can be about your brand at work. It can be about your brand at home. And we're frozen. Here we go. At home, at play, and for yourself. So for yourself, in terms of your own brand growth and those things that you're learning, when you understand your own pitch and your own narrative, you'll be able to identify where your gaps are and what you should be looking for to develop yourself. It goes without saying that we live in a wonderful age of the web. And all I want to say about the opportunity of promoting yourself is don't ever believe that you can promote yourself enough. We have people like Jacques and Richard and a whole lot of PSA really truly professional speakers where the reason for their popularity is because of their insights in sales. Even if you're the best brand proposition, if you don't get out there and sell what your ideas are about and profiling yourself, you'll just end up being the best kept secret. If you think in terms of conventional brands, in supermarkets, the very first thing that you have to do when you get listed is contribute a certain amount of budget to what they refer to as co-op advertising. It's the new brand and they will take your money and help announce that it's available on their shelves. You don't necessarily have to spend money. There's an enormous amount of curiosity. If you do nothing else, please, for your brand, just have your blog. Share your thinking, that honesty, those assets, those ideas that you have. They're magical. All of you have got stuff to share. The going rule nowadays is to give people stuff for free. Let them check, let them feel what you're about, let them see that authenticity and their proposition, and then they will come and listen to you more and more often. So I know that this is very brief, and as I said, really in under an hour, it's very difficult to kind of give you the ins and outs of building your personal brand. But if you go through this exercise in very simplistic form, and just look at those assets and then make the decision to repackage yourself, what you're going to find is that there are specific ideas. There are things that are truly uniquely yours. You may have exactly the same qualifications as 100 other people, but your own life experience, your soft skills, the best self-reflections that people present to you are going to give you the indicators of what make you truly unique. I have a colleague and a friend who we've worked parallel to each other in the ad industry, and he's now out of that and marketing in the wine industry. And he has a signature trademark. He has the most incredible collection of bow ties. And you may say, but what's a bow tie? For him, it's an iconic signature to what his brand is all about. And it represents this gentlemanly, slightly zany individual that he is and helps differentiate him. So invest the time to find those assets and repackage it. I guarantee that if you do that, you are definitely going to shine out. I enjoy the exercise myself. My friends are forever saying to me, aren't you exhausted? You're kind of now going into this reinvention. It's a whole nother presentation. It's a whole nother idea. But I think that is where I draw the energy and gives me the determination and feeds the fuel, the passion to be a speaker and to share ideas. And hopefully in sharing those ideas, get some energy back as part of that reward. I hope this has helped. If you do it, the stage is yours. Like Woody, you may think you've got a splintered personality, but it's not. It's all about you. If you get out there and promote it, do a good packaging job, you will definitely build a very powerful speaker brand. So I thank you for your time. I'm not sure, Charlotte, if I'm ahead, behind time, not, but I'd love to open it up to discussion and to answer some specific questions. Thank you.
Dawn, thank you. That was incredible. If we had a round of applause right now, that would be great. I'm just going to switch the views. There we go. All right, yes, so virtual applause there. Fantastic. Dawn, that was really very helpful. I know some of us on this call are working with a business coach, and we work through some things, and to hear the synergy of what you're saying with messages we're already getting just kind of reinforces that those values are getting really clear on our message and on our brand. It helps us to communicate that. All right, so we have some questions. And we have a lot of kind of comments about people coming and going, and are we recording? And yes, we are. But let's have some actual specific questions for Dawn about the branding the branding insights that she's offered to us. So you can either type it in, or if you can raise your hand electronically, or you can raise your hand physically if you've got your camera on. Any questions? Ian Hatton. Yes, sir.
Okay, so a comment before a question. The comment is just for everybody. If you click on the participants at the bottom of the screen, it gives you the opportunity to then digitally raise your hand or to applaud, as a lot of us have been doing. And certainly, Dawn, you would have had that from everybody if they all knew how to do it. It was a fabulous presentation. Dawn, you spoke of this, to me, one of the most exciting things, and interesting enough, I was speaking about it last night as well, and that is that your personal brand must truly reflect who you are. Have you got maybe either some tips or maybe even a story from your own experience of, because that's quite a difficult journey for a lot of people, and yes, getting feedback from others helps a lot, but sometimes you've got to look into that sort of deepest part of yourself. Do you have anything more to say about that?
Thank you, Ian. Yes, I think you have a very valid point. So I think being authentic, and there is so much written and promoted about authenticity today, because I think there's so much pressure and people masking who they are. It's interesting that a lot of the analytics and a lot of tools look for, in job performance, look to see who is masking who they truly are. I think there's a reality, and I think the value of going through a brand review exercise, as I described, is that I think for most of us, if some of you are just speaking because you love it and you don't have to worry about money, all I can say is well done, and I think you're in a fabulous space. I think for the majority of us, we still have an income to earn, and it's becoming more and more difficult and more pressured. So I think there's a balance in between looking at who you are, what your assets are, and how you can package that for success. If you are authentic and it's truly part of who you are, you're going to find it much easier to be more determined and to pursue that success. If you're trying to be a pretender and you're trying to mimic some global professional speaker that you saw and you thought, well, they made it work for them, let me mimic them. Very difficult. it's not going to be an energizer for you, and you won't be able to sustain that success. So I think that some of the clients that I work with, when people who I'm dealing with in developing personal brands, we have to find the right space. So sometimes you have to bury some of the dimensions and magnify or let other aspects of yourself shine out. I think that, by the way, you're a wonderful example of a brand. I always sense that you are authentic, you have an empathy, and you generate, there's no variation of who you are every time I've engaged with you or listened to you. And I think that that is very important and crucial to success. There's one question here, if I may, from Vilmin, talking about blogging, but not able to understand how to market herself via the blog, and if I've got any ideas. I think what's really crucial is to try and get, let's call it, consumer feedback. So the thing about sending out one-way communication is that you need to do things to encourage people to just show that they've heard you and that they like what you're saying. So a very good tool, my dad still insists to this day to ask me how my book sales are going. And he really cannot fathom, he can't get into his head that I say, Dad, I've given away more books than I've sold. But you need to have something. It may not be a book. It may be the offer of some kind of coaching engagement, or the chance to win something from you or engage with you, or an introduction. But you need to have a mechanism so that you can gauge where your best response is coming from. I'm not sure if there are any of the other speakers. I'm sure they've got even more experience of this than I have. Charlotte, maybe you have some recommendations. After all, you were so experienced in LinkedIn and using media like that.
But I'd agree with you, Dawn. Having your books as a tool to give away, to demonstrate, is really powerful. But any of those kinds of, we need to create something that allows people to engage with us. I think I heard the expression the other day, give them, the audience, something that they can experience and love about you. And once you have that, then they are going to find other ways to work with you. And I'm in that situation at the moment where it's a bit of a desert. I know how I can deliver at the end, but a lot of people sense that there's something I can offer them, but they don't know how to engage yet. So Richard is always on my case about the book, and that's what we're doing at the end of the year. I can't start work again next year. I can't go into 2019 without my book. So we do have to create something that people can, and it doesn't have to be a book. It could be a podcast. One of us is looking at that. Or it could be the blog, if that is a way of, like you're saying, getting that engagement and that feedback. But we need to be creating something. Very good. Dawn, we've got 2 people who've raised their hands. Nonchalancha, I think, was the first. I'm going to unmute you, sir. There we go.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this wonderful lesson. I'm glad that I joined in the right time. I just want to ask from a beginner's perspective, often would you have a coach or you'd have a mentor that you're following, be it someone that you're following physically or online or whatever the case may be. And also getting, when you are soliciting feedback from other people, how do I not get caught in the moment and find myself duplicating my mentor in one way or another without me being psychologically or consciously aware that I'm actually copying that particular person?
Thank you. That's a very interesting question. So when you unpack who you are, I'm sure that if we were sitting next to each other on a bus or a plane and we started engaging and you were telling me about your personality and your character and what your assets were, you'd have a very clear story. I think the art, the skill, and the discipline of writing down who you are and what is truly, what the drivers are for you, helps keep you true. There's no question that there's no harm in picking up nuances of a mentor or a coach. But, you know, if you go to a PSA convention and you sit there for 2 days of on-the-hour presentations, you would be a very confused chameleon if you try to copy the best bits of every one of those presenters. The very best thing, I mean, you come across to me as having a very strong personality and character. You seem very charming and you're confident. There are obviously drivers that are within you. Jot those down, because that's your brand asset. That is your brand message. And there's no harm in taking styles or nuances of others and blending that into your unique presentation as part of your packaging. I hope that gives you a practical guide.
That's a good answer. Thank you. Yonita has a question as well, and then we'll get on to the others. Yonita?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dawn. Thanks so much for that presentation. I think there's so many snippets there that one can take and make your own. The question I have for you is based on the conversation you had about a rebirth, you know, having a career for a couple of years, and then because of the economy and because of where business is going, sometimes a rebirth is really necessary to bring new energy to your career. And I'm going to ask a personal question. My background has always been predominantly in a corporate environment where it's more project management, implementation, operational work, which currently pays the bills. That's my focus and my rebirth going forward. Although there are male clients, my focus is very, very much on that rebirth with women entrepreneurs and empowering women. And you find that your marketing is very, very different. I've spent a lot of time on building a website that was acceptable to both male and female genders. And suddenly I realized that going into the empowerment space, I want to focus on women. So do you have that as a transition period of going from a dual gender focus to transitioning into the female area? Or do you actually build two brands where you build a brand on the male operational implementation side and you build a different brand on empowering more on the personal level? Does that make sense?
It certainly does. Thank you. And I see from the notes that I made that you are an empowerment specialist. So that was something that jumped out at me just in your introduction, you know, when you were just introducing yourself. So I think drawing on brand experience. So I must say that for me, I came from being a queen bee in the advertising industry to ground zero. And it's a very frightening place. There's no two questions about it. So I made the choice, and for me, it was for my own well-being, and I had to make a life decision. I think for a lot of people, you're almost forced into reinventing yourself as part of a survival in an economy or where you are. The very important thing is to be single-minded in your approach. So if you find that there's a very diverse difference from a male psyche and a female psyche in the empowerment area that you're dealing with, and that your natural affinity is towards women, go for it. Not to be overtly female targeted, but that is going to be your brand proposition. It's very difficult to be a shampoo that treats dandruff, but you're also trying to be for curly hair at the same time. There may be an opportunity where there's a unique mix and a unique blend, but I think you have to focus. It was something from my own personal experience. I moved through, for the first 2 years of my reinvention, tampered with mentoring, consulting, coaching, and then different fields of coaching. And it took a while. I was fortunate that I could support myself for those 2 years, but it was terrifying to see that bank balance disappearing. But I managed to stay true, and staying true has given me the opportunity to pursue what I really want. It's 5 years into the game for me, and I'm not earning what I used to earn, but gee whiz, I'm a lot happier. and my clients benefit from the energy that I put out to them. So I think you have to choose. Be single-minded, be brave, and even if you have to beg or borrow, try not stealing. Find a way of making it happen.
That's very real advice, Dawn. Thank you. Jafta also has a question. Jafta, can you unmute yourself? Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I failed to get in today. Okay, my question is this. Okay, can you brand yourself personally different from your business, or does it always have to be the same person and the business together? Or because I was reading a book yesterday by Klatzko, he was saying something about like a person like Richard Branson and the Vision Group. You'll find that he's doing other weird things, and then the companies are growing the other way. So he said something like that to say that you might end up harming your brand, your business in that way, or you can leverage on it. So does your branding always have to be aligned with your personal and your business at the same time? I don't know.
Thank you. I haven't read that particular piece from Douglas. I personally like Richard Branson and I follow him. I think he's an amazing example because the man is a multi-billionaire and he still uses his personal brand to assist the businesses of which he has different interests. My only advice to you, and I don't think there's a standard rule, but if you are authentic and if you're true to yourself and the way that you build your brand personality, you should not be so schizophrenic that somebody meeting you in business meets version A of you, but when they happen to bump into you at a family do, there's a completely different version of you. Because what will happen is that will create distrust. It means that the brand is not being consistent and honest. It has an inconsistency, it lacks truth. So very briefly, all I can say is if you are masking yourself so differently in business, it means that business is going to exhaust you because you're not being true to your brand, character, or personality. Try and find the space where you can be consistent through both. I hope that helps.
Yeah, again, very good advice, Dawn. I'm just going to share a little insight that I recently got. I worked for a few years in corporate, took a few years off and had children and some adventures in life. And then I've been training on LinkedIn. And while I was training on LinkedIn, I had a very corporate formal brand. I literally wore black pants, black shoes, and a LinkedIn blue blouse. I even painted my nails LinkedIn blue, and I really enjoyed it. I did the work, but it was a very formal, it's a lot of content to get through in a day, and you got to convince people and help them to overcome anxieties. And then I started to reinvent as a futurist, and my brand, I'm a futures alchemist, which allows me to play with a whole lot of concepts. We've literally got the steampunk theme running through everything. And for me, it's a shift in a whole lot of ways, new websites, new wardrobe and everything else. But the startling thing was when someone saw a showcase presentation of mine and said, you have a very playful style. And I'd never thought of myself as playful. I'd like to think of myself as professional. And here I'm being called playful. And within 2 weeks, just like Vilmina's just said, Yanita's just said she's got confirmation upon confirmation. But within a few weeks, somebody else called me whimsical and somebody else gave me another expression, which I can't recall right now. And I had to literally stop and look at what I want to deliver value and there's depth, but it's also could be quite a heavy topic. But instead of being formal like I had been with LinkedIn, I was presenting it in a style that would be engaging and fun for people so that they would actually embrace the message. So first of all, we have to realize it's not just a literal reinvention. As we mature in ourselves and we mature in our topics, we're going to express that in different ways. And what you were saying is getting that reflection back from other people is so important, because I would never have tapped into that like I'm trying to now without somebody telling me and giving me those words. So brand is There's so many kind of layers to the branding experience. This has been really very helpful. All right, do we have any other questions? Any hands raised literally, or Ken has got a question. Let me, again, unmute you. There you go, Ken. Hang on,
Right.
there we go.
Hi, Dawn. Hi, everybody. Dawn, we've met, and I've been trying to, for a long time, think of an analogy in my situation. And without sounding presumptuous, it's pretty much like in the Middle Ages where everybody thought the Earth was flat, and somebody realized maybe it's not flat, it's a sphere. And people want to shoot that guy, they want to wipe him out because they thought he was some sort of heretic. Now, I feel in that situation in terms of the fact that I genuinely do believe that the children are not, for instance, born with psychological problems. I think when they introduce psychology with kids is a mistake, and that you can really boil down all these issues that kids have to just the way they're being parented. And parents are sort of being sidelined, and everybody's focusing on the kids. The sort of flat earthers are taking these kids out and finding more and more issues, which are creating more and more problems because the parents are getting anxious. And I do believe I've got the answers for that. But as I said, I'm sort of just all of a sudden seeing the earth is round and not flat. So I'm coming from a fairly unique sort of position. And it's, as you can see, I'm not young. And but I really do believe that people need to start catching a wake up. And I just don't know. I'm really a bit of a loss. It's sort of where to start.
Ken, thank you. And I'm not sure, as you said, we've actually had a conversation about this. And I think that you have enormous opportunity in terms of your offering, but not where you thought it should go. So your foundation is to parents and on parenting. As I said to you, as a brand builder, I saw the opportunity in the commercial sector for you to have a really differentiated message. Sorry, just as an aside, I'll give myself a little punt here. I do, in November, I'm running what I call a deep dive workshop. It's a very intensive workshop with a maximum of 12 people, where I actually take individuals through a brand building exercise. So if you are interested, you can email me on to dawn@theartofthesuit.com or visit my website, which is theartofthesuit.com or .coza, and I'll give you information. I just think, sorry, I want to, there was a question I spotted earlier on about the 1, 2, 3 of what not to do, and coming back to your point as well, Ken, is I think that there's a reality with a brand. I think what not to do is to not try and follow the popularist avenue and to not be same. There is so much choice, and especially with the web and technology, you can access so much online and you can access for free. The first thing you should do with your brand, your personal brand and your business offering, is just be true to who you are and listen to those blind spots. So Charlotte, you gave the most wonderful example. I'm so thrilled that you have had feedback of those best self-reflections, because in my opinion, when I look at you and when we've spoken and I see your energy, you have got that quirkishness and that interest about you. That is what attracts people to individuals, is the point of difference. Sometimes we become too insistent and we pursue an avenue just because, for example, we studied it, or Ken, for you, because you have been pursuing that and that's where you invested so much of your career. But you're being blinded by a particular direction. You like the poor old hamster on that one wheel, and you don't realize that there's another wheel which is much more exciting and interesting. So in terms of what not to do is don't be habitual, and listen to those around you and look for opportunity. You really do need to keep that going. Sorry, I hope that kind of answered.
Thank you, Dawn. That's great.
Thank you. Have I missed, I'm not sure if I've missed any questions there, Charlotte or...
Jacques has a question. He's got his hand raised.
Yes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So more of a statement. I've done a 3-hour session with Dawn on a coaching basis, and it's really worthwhile. It's kind of flabbergasted me, because trying to sort your brand out is not just, you know, a Skype call. It's going to take a good couple of days, maybe weeks, maybe months, but you've got to get started somewhere. So I suppose if I can give her a punt, you know, go on that workshop, it'll just be the start, but it's certainly not the end of the journey. And it's yeah, it's been an interesting journey for me, because for those of you who know me, I've got such an eclectic brand. I don't know my arse from my elbow, because I'm either a monk in a retreat, or I'm a sales guy, and I'm trying to massage that and nuance that into something that, let's be quite base about it, but that will actually make me some money and not just be fun. So Dawn and I have been working on that, and it's been an awesome experience. So I certainly recommend going on her course. That's me.
Thank you, Jacques. And I think if I may just share, when I don't know if you remember the slide where I said getting somebody to help you on this journey and to give you perspective. It's very important that you take somebody that kind of has a degree of love for you and respects what you're sharing, because it's deeply personal. And it takes bravery, and Jacques is a brave man. He's been an excellent participant in this process. But you know, you sometimes have to let go of things that you truly love. It's like letting go of your most precious pair of pants, because it really doesn't make your bum look good. But you know, it's like you just have to sometimes let go of things in order to be able to grow and expand your brand. I see there's a question about the strategy document. Charlotte, can I quickly answer that? I don't know how we're doing for time.
No, we got plenty of time, carry on.
Fantastic. So in the strategy document, you remember I said when you dig around in your baggage and you look at your hard assets and your soft assets, and then to help you with your blind spots, you need to go to people who surround you to ask them to tell those stories. So when you're doing a brand strategy review, what you do is you put everything that you've got to offer on the table. So take your education, your work experience, all of your formal qualifications. Then take your soft skills, the things about you that you know, your hobbies, the things you love, whether it's cooking, whatever those talents are. It's amazing how you can take some of your passions that are just your hobbies and your interests and help you differentiate your brand. When you've got all of those things written down, as well as what people have told you about your best self-reflections of you at your best, or what they liked most about you. Once you've done that exercise, what you then need to do is choose. You've got to look at your target market in terms of who you're focusing on. So like Juanita's, she had this decision to make between men or women. Once you've made that call in terms of where your target is, then look at your assets and hand pick maybe the top 3 only. Because if you don't focus and take just those assets, what you are going to do is be a very confused brand. You're going to send out mixed messaging, mixed signals, and people won't really know what you're all about. There's some things you're going to have to keep just for your own enjoyment, not to be schizophrenic, but there are those things that you can say, well, hey, I never thought that being funny or a bit quirky or a bit zany was a sales aspect, but if so many people are repeating that, let me make that an integral part of my offering. There must be a market need. There must be a consumer need. So I hope that helps in terms of that strategy document.
Yes, I was going to ask something similar, but that slide with those questions about I am, those ones, I did a screenshot of that, but those are good questions to start with to kind of get some of that clarity. And if I can also just encourage people, you know, we said it already, but it is a process. We feel like we're going in one direction. We have these conversations. We we write out our document, and then after a couple of weeks we go, it's not working for me, it doesn't feel right, and then we need to maybe change it, or like Jacques was saying, kind of, you know, massage it into a different direction. So don't ever feel that this is kind of set in stone. It's an ongoing process the whole time as we learn more.
Could I just add to that, Charlotte? I think what's really important is, and I don't know whether it's a South African thing, I think we're too apologetic about when we decide, we think it's like failure. And I know that I've suffered from it. I've had career paths that I should have got shot off very early on. And I was so determined because I'd made the commitment and I'd made a public statement that this was now me, that I decided to stay in until it nearly killed me. And I think it's very important to be true to yourself. Don't be apologetic about refining or reinventing. Celebrate the fact that you are finding new aspects, new dimensions, and now you've got even more to offer. I think it's a very important energy.
Very good answer. All right. Okay, folks, I'm sure we have more questions for Dawn, but there is, you know, like she's saying, we can't cover all of this in an hour. Dawn, can I ask you, while we're doing this, can you put your website into the chat box so that people can get hold of you? And then please also remember Dawn's deep dive workshop in November. That would be really worth finding out about. So I'm assuming we can find that information on your website as well, Dawn?
Yes, it will be posted fairly soon. It'll be mid-November.
All right. Also feel free to, all of you, to join the PSASA community Facebook group. You should be following the business page, but join the community group. And Dawn, if you want to post in the community group about this, that'll be fine. We can't self-promote on the business page, but we can offer each other resources within the community group. So please do that. That'll be fantastic. All right, if you've got any last questions, you're going to have to kind of tap into Dawn's generosity and drop her an email at some point. We will have this recording up at some point before the end of this year. I'm not making any promises before that. But Dawn, it has been incredibly valuable. Thank you. For some of us, it's a reiteration of what we've already learned and an encouragement to continue. And for others, it's a strong call in the right direction. We also have to say there have been some comments. We love Woody. We think he is fantastic. I'm pretty sure we would like to meet some more of him. Hi, Woody. I think that it's such a beautiful way to do your slides. It pulls it all together with a theme. Very, very professional. Well done. We love that. All right, folks, any final comments as we wrap up? Just quickly, you can put them in the text box. People are saying it was superb. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you very much. And Janita said, failure is a necessary reroute towards success. Absolutely. All right, folks, thank you very much. Let's say goodnight to Dawn and have a good time. And if you make any major branding decisions or make any major branding progress, drop Dawn an email at some point in the future and let her know and say thank you for the inspiration from tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me in and the opportunity to share with all of you. I really hope it was useful. Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Cheers.
Excellent, Dawn. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.